All right, so some breaking news here. Various news sources, British-based news sources, revealing some startling information. The UK minister responsible for the visa situation, right, allowing or not allowing visa-free access, is closely tracking this development, the news. I'm going to get to what the news is, but the real threat here is, are the CBI options, the passports that have visa-free access to the UK, are they going to lose the visa-free access? Now, if that happens, there's a big impact to some of these products. Now, recently, St. Kitts and Nevis reduced their price to 125K. Now, again, there were a series of situations that have happened within the St. Kitts and Nevis program itself. The due diligence chief was accused of some scams. Now, we don't know if the price reduction is related to some of that news, but it happened approximately at the same time. Also, the other thing is with Vanuatu. Now, when Vanuatu lost its Schengen access, I was one of the very first ones to appeal to Vanuatu heads to reduce the price, make it more economical, make it more reasonable. I even reached out to their program officials. Recently now in news, they have mentioned that they're considering a price reduction, meaning they're making a more realistic option in place, which is a bond option, which can then award these citizenships by investing slightly less than the 100K mark. So, it obviously becomes more accessible to people. Now that it has lost its Schengen access, it got to remain competitive, right? So the price point really matters. A lot of people won't be interested in donating any money without, if that access is not in place. Now, that aside, here the news is, and I'm going to refer one of the news articles. There are several news articles floating around the internet, but this one seems to be talking straight to the point, and it says that the Home Office is preparing new visa restrictions on a series of countries being exploited by the Chinese in response to the concerns. And this is also in the Times. So the Times reported this first, and then all of the news channels are tracking this update. So what is the matter here? A lot of Chinese spies allegedly have gotten access to some of these passports, right? So pay for a passport, they can conveniently shell some money, no connection to the country, they can pay the money, buy the passport, and once they get the passport, they can then obviously do what they're doing. Again, not intended activities, but what they get is that direct access, visa-free access to the UK. So let's say their home country has restriction on their passport, they pay the money, they bypass or circumvent those restrictions because now they've purchased this passport which comes with the visa-free access to the UK, and now there is a loophole that they have discovered, right? Pretty legitimate scenario. So in response to that, now the Home Office is now looking at this comprehensively. What are the programs that are selling these passports, if they have the UK access or not, and if they do, then that is something that is being heavily looked at. Now, my predictions. Now, I don't think the good news, right? There's a good part and there's a negative part, right? So the good part is that the natural born citizens, hopefully their access is not taken away. That's how I look at it. Again, this is not immigration, legal, tax, or finance advice. This is, news article and my assessment on this topic. So the natural born citizens might just get away with keeping the access. But let's say someone purchasing the passports, a lot of people who pay for these passport schemes, if they make the decision, then there's a good chance or there's a likelihood that that access could be terminated. Now, I'm going to discuss two very important things. One is, if that access is terminated, the UK access, then what is the price point, right? What impact should it have on the prices? How should the prices change in response to losing the UK access? Now, mind you, Vanuatu is the only exception that has lost the Schengen access. The other programs still have the Schengen access. The EU is currently examining. There's a lot of developments that are happening. The EU is bringing a lot of changes in the pipeline. Now, I have discussed these changes very extensively. Now, if you have missed my coverage on the plans that EU has, some proposed plans, you can always return and check this video. This talks about the entire game plan in a lot more detail. But for now, those Caribbean passports, or the CBI passports, some of the CBI passports still have that Schengen access as of date. But here we're talking about losing the UK access and the price impact if this happens. And secondly, I'm going to also discuss the solutions, right? What are the potential solutions? What can be done? Let's say you have renounced your home country citizenship, you've paid for one of these passports, you thought this was a lifelong deal, but now with this realistic threat, these issues cropping up where one by one, there seems to be threat of losing all kinds of access that one paid for. For example, the US terminated the E2 for pay for passport scheme candidates unless they are from that country. Now here we're talking about the realistic threat of the UK access being revoked. We don't know in future if the European Commission EC terminates the Schengen access just like the Vanuatu. Is there an interim time before these programs comply with the demands of the EU? Now, recently the US met with the Caribbean options. Now there is more auditing in place, there's interviews, there's a lot more stuff that's put in place to uncover a lot of the wrongdoings or the abuse or the misuse. So because of the auditing, a whole lot is expected to come out, right? Before I jump to those two very important discussions, make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you are the first one to be notified the moment there's any change or there's any impact to any of the programs, and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss out on that notification. And in case you were new, my name is Jay, and here we discuss investments that lead to Plan B residencies, citizenships, and a whole lot more. All right, so the price point, right? So if the Caribbean passports lose the UK access, again, there's a very real threat looming out here because of this development, right? And Western governments are utilizing every single opportunity that they can to target some of these options. Right or wrong is beyond the scope of the discussion. We're talking about what's happening on the ground and the impacts, right? What is right for me might be wrong for you, vice versa. So let's not even get into the right and wrong discussion here. A lot of people jump and they say they defend and all of that. All that good. We're talking about practical situations and scenarios here, right? So if the UK access is taken off, then let's say the St. Kitts and Nevis is at 125. I think they should reduce, or they should consider reducing the price to 75K or even 50K to make it competitive without that UK access. Now, without the UK access, let's say 55, 60K. If the Schengen access gets terminated, then I feel it's worth 25,000 US dollars, not more than that. That's the way I look at this. The other CBIs, right, the ones that sell for 100K, they should, once the UK, if the UK access is terminated, if it is banned, then they should seriously look at dropping it down all to the 50K mark. And as I said, if the Schengen access is terminated, then 20 to 25K looks like the real worth of some of these passports. Now, what are the options? What are the solutions? Now, I always looked at all of these options as an interim stopgap arrangement. Again, reputation, good or bad, it has a very real CBI reputation. There's a lot of mechanism and tracking in place to track CBI citizens around the world. Now, if you have missed how the tracking mechanism works at banks, at airports, etc., how these citizens are tracked, you can always return and check this video. This talks about all the tracking in place for CBI citizens to monitor CBI citizens in certain cases. But coming back to the point, this was more of a stopgap arrangement. Let's say you're looking to renounce and you don't have any other citizenship to fall back on. You want something immediately. Then one looked at these options. Again, not the favorite options for me by any stretch of imaginations. I don't recommend any such solutions. For some people, that might be the only option, so it's okay. It's not the best option out there. What I truly feel the future, right? If you're in the situation where, let's say, you've purchased these options, you're looking to get out of it, or let's say you renounced your home country nationality and this is all that you have, and with the realistic threat of losing one access after the other, what is the solution? The solution seems to be natural options, and there are plenty of real natural options. And when I say real, real ties, real connections, not the real CBI passports, right? So what are the options? There are some fantastic options in Latin Americas. There is Mexico, there is Nicaragua, Panama, Ecuador, Dominican Republic, Brazil, Argentina. I've extensively covered all of these programs in a lot of detail. So if you visit my channel page, you get all the information on how you could qualify for all these options. I'm also heavily invested in the Africas. There's some awesome options in the Africas. I work with some of the strongest attorneys for most of these programs in Latin America as well as in the Africas. If you're interested in figuring out what's the best route for you, let's say you speak Spanish, you speak English, whatever your preferences, we can figure out, narrow down the best option and can get you started with the right legal expert in whichever region makes most sense for you. And you can always click that link in the description, book a call with us. We can have that discussion, hook you up with the right legal expert and get you started immediately. I hope you liked my assessment, my analysis. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you're subbed and catch you in the next one.